BitLocker is another technology that's available in Windows 10 to provide data security, only here it's whole volume encryption. So where EFS is about encrypting files and individual folders, the BitLocker technology does the entire volume. So in so doing, it provides complete protection for all data that is stored on that volume. It also provides protection for data when it is offline. When the system is shut down, the files are in an encrypted state. In fact, the entire volume is in an encrypted state. And so you couldn't say access the drive from another operating system or pull the drive and go try to access it in a different computer and be successful, because it will be locked. And when the system comes on, if the appropriate, or the hard drive comes on, if the appropriate keys aren't provided, then it's completely locked. It protects all applications as well. So all applications, all data, that's the benefit here. It's a one-time shot where you enable BitLocker drive encryption, and then everything on that volume is protected. It does actually support the verification of system integrity and boot configuration data, along with ensuring the integrity of the startup process. Basically, that works when you're in a TPM mode, which is your trusted protection module or trusted platform module. That's going to work in that type of scenario, where essentially if any of the files get modified that make up that start process, that boot configuration data store, or your master boot record, if any of that stuff changes, the system automatically locks the drive. And it automatically goes into what's a recovery mode, where you have to provide a recovery key in order to decrypt, because it's assuming that something's been altered and this drive may be being started up in a separate system. Maybe somebody stole the drive, so it's just a built-in protection mechanism. A trusted platform module, TPM, is a cryptographic chip that is embedded on the motherboard, and it protects the startup process from offline tampering. If it's there, it's going to be used by default, and it's not necessarily required, but it is something that is recommended. BitLocker was a technology that actually was introduced to us in Windows Vista. Windows 7 enabled BitLocker to go, and that continues now through Windows 10. BitLocker to go is the same type of full volume encryption, only it's allowed for any drive, including removable drives. And so this is configurable in File Explorer as well. When you insert a flash drive and then go to try to encrypt it, it will allow you to set up a password for protection. You can configure unlocking via smart card. You can determine whether on a particular system it unlocks automatically. So if it's my work computer, I'm going to encrypt it, but every time I plug it in here, I just want it to automatically be unlocked. Other systems, when you access it, you would just be specifying a password. So a lot of organizations are requiring this. If data is going to be stored on removable media, then it must be protected with BitLocker. That way it makes sure that any user who loses a flash drive, who might lose a flash drive, somebody else picks that up, they can't easily get into the information. In fact, they're not going to be able to get into the information at all unless the password is really simple and something they can guess. The requirements for BitLocker will list the use of a TPM chip, 1.2 or later. As we said, this is just looks like a little ROM chip that's on the motherboard of some computers, not all, but there are computers that do contain TPM chips. It is becoming far more prevalent now than it was when BitLocker was first released. You don't have to have it, though. There is the option to use a removable USB drive as opposed to the TPM chip. Basically, we just have to store the encryption keys. The master keys are stored in this location so that when you boot up the system, it pulls that master key out, and then it is able to decrypt the volume encryption keys, which are stored in the system partition, which then decrypts the actual operating system drive or the volume. Okay, so if you have a flash drive, then you just have to have the flash drive inserted when you're booting up the system. as opposed to with the TPM chip, it just reads it right out of the chip and doesn't ask you anything. In either case, you can ask for additional information. We can force a PIN number or a password to be used in addition to those keys. It is going to require 2 partitions, but Windows 10 will handle creating those for you. One is for the boot files, referred to by Microsoft always as the system partition. Those boot files are going to be unencrypted because they have to be accessed very early on before these keys are obtained from the TPM chip or the flash drive. So we boot up, but then before we're able to access the rest of the operating system files and actually boot to the operating system, then this whole process has to occur successfully, okay? So it'll create a smaller partition for that. The 2 modes, TPM mode with a TPM chip will lock the normal boot process. There is an optional startup pin. There's an optional USB unlock. Non-TPM mode is storing the startup key on a USB, and that we have to use group policy to even be able to configure non-TPM mode. So let's take a look now at BitLocker drive encryption. Just going to go here, type in BitLocker. There's a Manage BitLocker section of Control Panel. It's going to show me my operating system drives. I've got a fixed data drive and then removable drives. So those are the 3 categories. You can use BitLocker to protect all of them. The primary purpose of BitLocker is always, or the primary focus, has always seemed to be portable computers. A portable computer that can be stolen. We want a way to protect the system. I've met a few organizations that use it for all of their drives. It just prevents the theft of those drives and the information that they contain. And then many organizations that just use it maybe for removable disk for the same reason. But you can protect all of these. It would be as simple as turning on BitLocker, and this is what normally happens when you do that, okay? This device uses or can't use Trusted Platform Module because there is no Trusted Platform Module. Now, if you want to check that beforehand, you can go to TPM Administration, and then it's going to tell you that it can't be found or it needs to be turned on in the BIOS. So this computer does not have one. And because of that, we have to start in group policy, okay? Or in this case, local policy. So the local computer policy under computer configuration, administrative templates, and then Windows components, we've got BitLocker drive encryption, okay? And we've got the encryption here and what we would be focusing on would be operating system drives. And it's the 3rd option here, require additional authentication at startup, which sounds odd, but the first option when you enable it is to allow BitLocker without a compatible TPM. Okay, so that is, and we'll come back to some of these policy settings, but that is the setting that is required in order for me to be able to do this, okay? Immediately, now it's fine. So it's gonna now verify that the PC meets certain requirements. It's just checking things. And then it will go through the process, if I allow it to, it'll go through the process of creating a separate partition and then encrypting that operating system volume. Okay? So here we go, prepare your drive for BitLocker, encrypt your drive. When they turn it on, I'm gonna go ahead and stop because I don't wanna do it to the operating system drive, okay? Instead, we'll go and we'll turn on BitLocker for a flash drive here. That way we can at least see this. So as I said, how do you want to unlock the drive? It's either a smart card or a password. If we use a password, we just want to make sure that we're using one that is known only to us and that's fairly secure, okay? You want to back up a recovery key. You can save it to a file, print it, or a new option is to save to your Microsoft account, okay? Although for some reason that didn't work for me. I logged in as a Microsoft account. Usually we save it as a file or print it. Just don't store it on the BitLocker protected device. And then if you're going to print it, don't keep it around. You want the recovery key. The recovery key is essentially going to be a password here. It's going to be that you use if you ever forget the password. So if I forget the password, then I have to use the recovery key. That's kind of the idea, okay? How much of the drive to encrypt? This was another new feature, if I remember correctly, introduced first with Windows 8. It might have been 8.1. And that's the ability to not encrypt the entire drive, okay? So if you only want to encrypt used space, then that's going to go fastest, best for new PCs and drives. I don't have to encrypt. It will encrypt as it goes along, okay? Encrypt the entire drive. If the stuff is already in use, then that's what you would want to do. I have a flash drive that everything is deleted off of it, and so we'll just go ahead and encrypt it. Okay, so then it goes through the process of encrypting. We see our different options there. Okay, that was quick because there was nothing on it, and it's a smaller flash drive. We can back up the recovery key, which gets back into that. You can change the password, which is pretty simple. Add a smart card, turn on the auto unlock. Okay, and if I turn on the auto unlock, then it's automatically unlocked on this computer. We open up File Explorer here, and we go to this PC, and we see the BitLocker icon there, all right? But it's showing as unlocked. Now, if I pull it, go over to another system, then I would go over to another system, I'm going to be prompted for the password. And you can always right-click the drives and choose Manage BitLocker, and that's going to take you right back into the same spot, okay? Let's go back into the policies, just talk a little bit about this. First off, you've got the 3 different categories, but you also have some other options. I mean, we do have the ability to store the BitLocker recovery information in AD, and that's something that is most likely going to be done in domain environments. So that's a good one to enable, and it's storing recovery passwords, that 48-digit number in AD. And what it does is it's actually an attribute of the computer object in Active Directory. So if you're having to hunt it down, you would be going to the computer object and searching through the additional attributes to find that key. We can choose encryption strength and things like that. When you get into operating system drives, you are, on the later versions here, we're using Secure Boot for the validation, the integrity of the startup process. If we want to add a PIN number or something, we're going to go back into this additional authentication at startup, and so then we're going to say, we want to require a startup PIN with the TPM. You can also do a startup key. You can do a startup key and a PIN. So, I mean, the difference is the key is more like a password. The PIN is just a PIN number. And that will increase security so that way, this is a really good idea. With a TPM chip, I mean, this is for portable computers. If they get stolen, then this protects them. Well, if you got a TPM chip and it just boots right up and decrypts the drive because of the information stored in the TPM chip, then how did that protect it? It didn't. So really, we need to be requiring startup keys and or PIN numbers so that you increase security, right? And so that's that setting. That's a important one. We can do enhanced PINs, which would just be more complex settings. And there are a number of other options there, but those are probably the big ones that you would want to know about. Here on removable data drives, we got an option to control the use of BitLocker, and we would enable it, just allowing them to apply protection. Okay, maybe not allowing them to suspend and decrypt. I mean, they are allowed by default, but you don't necessarily have to do that. This is probably the most interesting one: deny write access to removable drives not protected by BitLocker. So basically, you are saying, in order for you to be able to do anything other than read off of a removable drive, it has to be protected with BitLocker. And so the user would actually get prompted when they plug in a flash drive to encrypt it. So that's a good setting that a lot of organizations will use in order to make sure that stuff is secure. Okay? Enforce drive encryption type, and so then we can choose the particular type. I mean, this probably doesn't really matter, but I mean, that's not that big of a deal just because it's a performance issue, but maybe some organizations may want to go with the full. And then you can configure the use of passwords, and what we can do is we're going to require password complexity. Okay, so you have to have a password for a removable data drive, and it has to be complex. And so you could pick the number of characters and whatnot that are going to be used. So those are some good settings for the removable data drives, and that's just in general some of the bigger settings for BitLocker as a whole. Now, mind you, those settings will probably be configured in group policy so that they apply to multiple systems throughout the domain. But with BitLocker, we do have the ability, we said, to encrypt entire volumes to help protect systems, might have hard drives stolen or the system stolen as a whole.